Whispers of the possessed. The medical records call it dissociative identity disorder. The priests call it demonic possession. Sarah Winters calls it the 9 months she lost to something that wore her body like an ill-fitting suit. I was still in there, she says, her fingers tracing patterns on the tabletop that seem random until you notice they form the same sigil over and over. Trapped behind my own eyes, watching it use my voice, my hands. I screamed, but no sound came out. I fought, but my limbs wouldn't obey. The possession didn't begin with dramatic manifestations or spinning heads as Hollywood might suggest. For Sarah, it started with the Ouija board session in her university dormitory, a drunken attempt to contact her recently deceased grandmother. Her roommates remember her as the skeptic of the group, mockingly asking questions about future exam answers. They also remember how the planchette moved differently when it was her turn, with a fluid, deliberate motion unlike the hesitant movements during others' turns. It felt like electricity moving up my arm, Sarah recalls of that night. Not painful, more like when your foot falls asleep and then wakes up. Except the pins and needles sensation reached my chest, my throat, and finally my head. She paused the session, claiming sudden nausea. That night, she dreamed of a vast darkness with yellow eyes, watching her from the corner of her bedroom. Sarah's experience progressed with subtle changes, unexplained gaps in memory, objects moved overnight, journals filled with writing she didn't recognize. Her roommate, Eliza, reported finding Sarah standing motionless in their shared bathroom at 3:17 a.m. 3 nights in a row, staring into the mirror and whispering what sounded like Latin backwards. I thought she was sleepwalking, Eliza later told investigators. Until the night I touched her shoulder and she turned around with this smile. It wasn't Sarah's face anymore. I can't explain it. Same features but arranged wrong somehow. Sarah began collecting dead things, birds, mice, insects, arranging them in geometric patterns in her desk drawer. Her academic focus shifted from literature to obscure theological texts. Professors noted her sudden interest in apocryphal writings and demonology, particularly the Book of Enoch and texts concerning Coranzon, a demon associated with chaos and dispersion of identity. Then came the physical manifestations, contortions that left her shoulders dislocated, sudden strength that broke restraints in the psychiatric ward, knowledge of dead languages she'd never studied. Her body temperature would fluctuate dramatically. Hospital records documented drops to 94.7 degrees, followed by fever spikes to 104.3 within minutes, with no physiological explanation. Dr. Raymond Chen, the attending psychiatrist during her first hospitalization, documented Sarah speaking perfect Mandarin, directly addressing his grandmother's death by drowning, a fact he had never shared with patients. When he questioned how she could know this, Sarah reportedly smiled and replied in English, "The water fills your lungs the same way I fill her." One vessel exchanged for another. The surveillance footage from her 3rd month at Westlake Psychiatric Facility shows Sarah walking on the ceiling, not metaphorically, but literally traversing the room inverted, her hair hanging down, apparently defying gravity. The footage was classified and later reported corrupted, but 3 staff members requested immediate transfer after the incident. The thing inside her knew details about the hospital staff no patient could know. Childhood traumas, hidden affairs, secrets whispered only in private. It spoke to each of their deepest shames and fears. Nurse Pratima Dasgupta quit after Sarah described, in vivid detail, the illegal abortion Dasgupta had in college. Information shared with no one, not even her husband of 20 years. It would modulate my voice depending on who it was speaking to, Sarah explains. Sometimes childlike, to appear innocent, sometimes seductive. With the hospital chaplain, it used my voice to mimic his dead son, perfectly reproducing the vocal patterns from old home videos it couldn't possibly have heard. Sarah's body became a canvas for inexplicable phenomena. Stigmata-like wounds appeared and disappeared on her wrists and side. Words in Aramaic, Greek, and what linguistic experts identified as Proto-Canaanite script emerged as raised welts on her skin, only to fade hours later. During full moons, her eyes would reflect light like a nocturnal animal's, Most disturbing were the predictions. Through Sarah's mouth, the entity accurately foretold 3 deaths in the hospital, including the sudden aneurysm of a seemingly healthy orderly. It described a bus crash on Route 17 12 hours before it happened, down to the specific injuries of the children involved. It recited patient case notes from locked files without having access to them. When it wanted to torment me specifically, Sarah says, it would use my hands to draw portraits of my childhood abuser, my Uncle Thomas, and leave them where I would find them when I occasionally regained control. It knew exactly which memories would trigger me back into submission so it could retake control. By month 7, Sarah's physical condition deteriorated dramatically. She lost 27 pounds despite consuming enormous meals. Her hair began falling out, and blood tests showed inexplicable toxins present in her system. She would go days without sleeping, then collapse into catatonia for 48-hour stretches. During one such period, security footage showed her body remaining perfectly still while her shadow moved independently along the wall. The exorcism attempt came after conventional treatments failed. It took 6 days. 3 priests participated. Only one remained in the clergy afterward. Father Michael Esposito, the lead exorcist, refused to discuss the details but was granted early retirement and now lives in a monastery under a vow of silence. The second priest, Father James Callahan, suffered a stroke during the 3rd day and now requires full-time care, unable to speak except to occasionally mutter the phrase "yellow eyes" before becoming agitated. They never tell you about the aftermath, Sarah says. Once the demon is gone, you're left to rebuild alone. The doctors offer medications, the church offers prayers, but no one can guide you through remembering what it felt like to be hollowed out and filled with something else. How do you trust yourself again when you know how easily you can be occupied? She falls silent, staring at nothing. Then her eyes refocus with frightening intensity. The worst part? Sometimes I still hear it whispering. Not from inside anymore, but from just behind my shoulder, waiting for another invitation, another moment of weakness. And some nights, God help me, I almost miss it. The power, the freedom from human constraints. Her fingers stop tracing the pattern. I should clarify, she says with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. When I say I survived possession, I never claimed the exorcism was successful. She leans forward, her pupils contracting vertically like a cat's for just a moment. After all, why would I leave such a perfect host? Sarah fought bravely, but in the end, she was just so accommodating. Now we've reached an arrangement. She gets the daylight hours mostly to herself, and I get the darkness that humans like you fear to examine too closely. The smile widens, revealing teeth that seem just slightly too sharp. Would you like to see what I've taught her body to do after sunset?